Okay, the video you just saw, there's a link in the description box to the previous video. Okay. Yeah, I'm making 2 videos back to back today. Jury duty. You get a jury notice, you go to the courthouse in question, the day in question, and the judge will be like, civil case here, criminal case here, grand jury here, I need this and the other thing. They get about 200 jurors in a room, and the judge will say, give me 50 guys to argue for this case. They bring 50 guys upstairs at random, and the lawyers and the judge argue about what 50 are going to be whittled down to 12. Now, a grand jury is jurors. They come in, okay, today we need a grand jury. Usually 23 jurors. I'll get to that in a minute. The prosecutor comes in. Prosecutor says, I have a suspect. This is all the evidence I have against the suspect. Should I go to trial? If the grand jury says no, the suspect is free that instant. If the grand jury says yes, the suspect is formally booked and is sent to trial. The judge will say, are you guilty or not guilty? If the guy says, I'm guilty, no trial. If the guy says, I'm not guilty, they call in completely different people for a completely different jury, and that is a 12-person jury, and then the question is, guilty or not guilty. Now in Missouri, a grand jury is 12 people. That's their law. Some places it's 23, but whatever. Now, the grand jury was asked 5 questions, ranging from no charge to first-degree premeditated murder. 9 jurors had to say yes to one charge. If 9 jurors couldn't agree on one charge, no charge. Guilty, innocent, or proven guilty. Now, how the jurors voted has not been discussed yet. If it is in the future, I'll come back and annotate it into this video. And the jurors were given all the evidence, and the jurors saw every speck of evidence. They saw every photograph, heard every witness statement. Eyewitnesses means people that saw the incident. Scientific witnesses means scientists that studied DNA, fingerprints, blood, ballistics, autopsy. Those are scientific witnesses. Scientific witnesses are more reliable because they're all trained. The forensic scientist is trained as a forensic scientist. The medical examiner is a doctor, a medical doctor. All these guys that testify to forensics evidence are all highly trained professionals. In addition to that, they get a paycheck from the government, which means they're not going to lie to protect you. Because if they lie to protect you, they lose their job and go to jail. So, scientific evidence is always reliable. Eyewitnesses, 1 out of 100 is not reliable. You had a whole bunch of eyewitnesses, most of whom were black, who said that the white police officer shot the black suspect in self-defense. You have scientific witnesses that come forward and said the bullet went here, the bullet went here, blood splatter was in the car, which indicated Mike Brown was shot in the car. Gunshot residue and scorching were on his fingers, his body, to indicate the muzzle was less than 8 inches away when it was fired, to indicate he's invading the officer's private space. Now, here's what you could have had: 8 jurors say first-degree murder, 4 jurors say manslaughter. No decision, no charges. We'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with that. They're going to release that information. Now, here's what happened. Officer Wilson got a phone call about a baby that couldn't breathe. He went to the baby's house, waited for the ambulance to come, and he saved the baby's life. After that call, he hears on the radio, there was a robbery. Suspects are black men. One is 6'4", 300 pounds, red hat, white t-shirt, yellow socks. Black or white? When was the last time you saw a guy walking down the block that weighed 300 pounds and had yellow socks, a white t-shirt, and a red hat on? So Officer Wilson actively pursued the suspects. You cannot do that because you are not a police officer. But a police officer on patrol can actively look for a suspect. You cannot. He saw the suspects, told him, get back on the sidewalk. He wanted to stop him. Get back on the sidewalk. You're blocking traffic, blah, blah, blah. Then he stopped and tried to get out of the car. Now, you stopping to try to get out of the car is going to be an issue because you're not a police officer. As a police officer, he has a right to exit his vehicle. Now, the first question, who started the fight? Now, if you got in a car and went around looking for someone, they would say you started the fight. If you saw two men walking down the street, said, robbery suspect, stopped, got out of the car, they would say you started the fight. But as a police officer, Darren Wilson was allowed to, if not obligated to, actively seek out and physically stop. So that is not considered aggression, that is considered police business. Now, Mike Brown went over and shoved the door shut. Might have used his hand, might have used the belly bounce, but he shoved the door shut. You do not have a right to touch a peace officer, paramedic, fireman, police officer, crossing guard. You do not have a right to put your hands physically on a peace officer in any aggressive fashion. You can shake hands with the cop, you can pat the cop on the shoulder and say, good job, man, God bless you, brother. You might not want to do that because cops get a little upset if they don't know you. But any act of aggressive force or even the threat of aggressive force, I'm going to punch you in the face, against a peace officer is a felony. So when Mike Brown went over to the car and shoved the door shut, blocking the officer's path, that right there was a felony. And as a peace officer, Darren Wilson is confronted with a suspect who committed a felony in his direct observation. You would be required to retreat, most likely. You should retreat, most likely. A peace officer, no. So Darren Wilson tried to exit the car. At some point, Mike Brown hit him in the side of the head with a closed fist. Now, if a 4th grade girl sits on your lap and punches you in the face, that is completely different than a 6'4", 300-pound man punching you in the face, sitting on you, encroaching upon you. So now Darren Wilson is in an issue where he's being physically assaulted in his car. Can he retreat? Probably not, but he's a police officer. He's not obligated to. At some point, the gun is drawn. Some people say he might have drew it himself. Other people might have said Mike Brown drew it for him. But at some point, the gun is drawn. Darren Wilson says he warned Mike Brown, you will be shot. Mike Brown allegedly replied, you're too much of a pussy to shoot me. That is speculation because that can't be proven. But at some point, the gun is drawn. At some point, the gun is fired. Mike Brown is hit, he retreats. Stand your ground law means if someone attacks you, you have a right to stand your ground and fight where you are. Mike Brown has retreated. You should retreat at this point. But Darren Wilson, a police officer, is now in pursuit of a felony suspect who has been injured and may become more erratic. He gets out of his car to pursue the suspect. The suspect, allegedly, according to eyewitness statements, turns towards him and allegedly goes like this with his shirt. If you go like that while you're walking down the street, a police officer might not have a problem with it. But if you've committed a felony in the direct observation of the police officer, this is going to be a threat. Because if you've watched my last video, you saw what could be kept in your shorts and on your neck and in your sock. So when Mike Brown does this, he is threatening force. And that force might be to present a weapon. Mike Brown is 6'4", 300 pounds. His body is the weapon. At some point, eyewitnesses say Mike Brown put his head down and charged like a football player, and that's why the bullet entered his head. So now the question is this: who started the fight? According to the evidence, according to the grand jury's decision, Mike Brown started the fight. Darren Wilson, being a police officer, was not under any obligation to retreat from Mike Brown. So you cannot say that you did not retreat, okay? If you shoot someone, they might ask you, did you attempt to flee? Did you attempt to retreat? Why did you exit your car? Remember George Zimmerman? Why did you exit your car? If a police officer is involved in a fight, they cannot ask, why did you not retreat? Because he's not required to retreat. So the duty to retreat in this case is completely gone. Now, this is the major question they ask. When you inflict deadly force, shooting, stabbing, beating someone in the head with a bat, strangling someone, breaking someone's neck, slamming someone's head against a concrete wall, throwing someone on the ground and stomping on their head, that is deadly force. When you inflict deadly force, the question that is asked, did you, at the exact second you inflicted deadly force, honestly and reasonably believe that there was a 51% chance that you were going to be the victim of murder, life-altering bodily injury, kidnapping, sexual assault? It doesn't matter that your head was not busted open already. It does not matter that you were not shot already. What matters is that at the exact moment you inflicted deadly force, you honestly and reasonably believed there was a 51% chance you were going to be the victim of whatever I just said. Now, when I say life-altering injury, like if I punch you in the face, you get a black eye, it's healed tomorrow, that's not life-altering injury. If I stab you in the face and you're blind in that eye, that's life-altering injury. If I slam your head against a concrete wall and you bust your head open, that's life-altering injury. If I hit you in the head with a bat and you have headaches 25 years later, that's serious, severe, life-altering injury, aggravated assault. Now, if a 300-pound, 6'4" man is in your vehicle and he's punching you in the face and he's wrestling for your gun because the fingerprints and blood were found on the gun itself to prove the gun was fired at very close range when they were wrestling over it. If a 6'4", 300-pound man was punching you in the face and fighting for your gun, would you believe that there was a 51% chance he was going to kill you or seriously injure you? If you are standing here and you as a police officer have no obligation to retreat, and a 6'4", 300-pound man is standing there and he is getting ready to charge you and he has not been searched, and if you watch the last video, you don't know what's in his pockets. So in addition to his body being a weapon, you don't know about guns and knives and whatever, hatchets and hammers. If a 6'4", 300-pound man that has committed a felony in your presence is charging at you, would you believe that there was a 51% chance that he was going to kill you or seriously injure you? I'm going to give you a science fiction analogy. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Yes, we're going to go there. I'll put the link in the description for some other guy's video. In the original version, Han Solo is in a bar, sitting in a chair. His enemy is sitting across from him, aiming a blaster at him. And the enemy tells him in no uncertain terms, I'm going to kill you. And Han He can't get up because if he gets up, he's gonna get shot. He's stuck. Han sneaks out his gun, boom, and kills his enemy. If Han Solo were in an American legal system, Han Solo would be considered justified. Because even though Han Solo didn't get a mark on his body at all, he was sitting in a chair, backed against the wall, he could not leave, and there was a man aiming a gun at his face. And the man said, "I will kill you." That's all that's needed. I don't need to have my head busted open. And a lot of the gun control advocates call it the Make My Day law or the Shoot First law. You are not under any obligation to wait for a suspect to fire a gun at you, pray to God that he misses you, and then fire back. You're also not under any obligation to use a knife when the suspect is using a knife. That's all that matters, and that's what the jury came to decide. The grand jury, in the end, eventually decided that at the exact moment Darren Wilson pulled the trigger, he honestly and reasonably believed there was a 51% chance he was going to be the victim of either murder or aggravated assault. And there was a police officer in my home state who you don't hear about. He was on a call. The suspect met him at the car. The suspect beat him up in the car. The suspect took the gun from him and shot him. And he's dead. And people that look at that case say, yeah, that would have been Darren Wilson. Okay, and that's the analysis. Okay, thank you.